Hi. So in this video, I will be telling you about my trip home after actually being left out with no place to sleep over in Holland. Uh, so within the entire book, I show you a lot of ways in which the environment and people around you can operate to induce mental illness in you and to induce a belief in you that you are mental. Okay, so if you're suffering from anything that's so-called psychological disorder, then I think this video and basically my channel, Push the Pig Out, together with my book Piglet, is for you. So in the previous video, I told you that I was driving from place to place, looking for a hostel, looking for a place to sleep over, and I was promised by at least 3 people that they would have a place for me, and the last moment it turned out they didn't. And it somehow all was, connected with going to the police. So, yeah, because for the third time, I believed I had my phone hacked and people were quoting me. So I was going to the police, and just before having the deadline, the meeting set up with them, I actually waited the night in front of the police station. And once I could file my complaint, I was treated in a different way. So when I was scheduling a deadline with them for the meeting, they were very nice people to me, and everyone was, very comprehensive and very polite. But when I was actually filing my complaint, you know, during the meeting, the door to the office in which I was giving my, so to say, testimony was opened, and the police officer didn't treat me seriously, and actually I felt a lot of judgment on her part. But she gave me a list of hostels, so they gave me a lift to one hostel. We checked the hostel, and it was full. And funny thing, they kind of wanted to take me to another hostel, but there was this conversation if I could call. If I could call first, then they would take me to that another hostel. And I didn't want to call because I already had enough of the phone. So yeah, and that was when going back to Poland, I actually left my phone just like that, angrily, in Holland. So, I thanked the police and I took the taxi from Amsterdam to Duvendrecht, which is a bus stop for where buses to Poland go. And when I was waiting, there were a lot of people. I have never seen so many people over there before. I have already traveled on my own to Holland, there and back, especially with those buses of Sindbad bus. So there are a lot of people, and I have already, traveled to Holland twice with two baggages. I mean, I left some part of my luggages at my friend Wesley, and then I went to Poland on a leave, and then I took more baggages because I believed I was staying in Holland, and I believe I was staying there for good. I wanted to live there. So I had really lots of luggages with me. And as I didn't take out my contact lenses, the white gathered on my eyes, or something gathered on my eyes, and I couldn't see well. And that was something that was stressful for me. So when people were walking too close to my bags, it was annoying for me. And I really wanted to see, I really wanted to see if somebody is approaching and dropping some listening wire, or yeah. So I didn't see well, and there was a lot of this luggage. When the two buses to Poland arrived, they were all full of people. So first I lifted and took my luggages close to the bus, and then I asked if there was a free seat, and I have learned that there wasn't any, but I asked for a standing seat and I got yelled at. And the lady who answered back told me that she could go to prison because of me. And I was like, I just asked a question, because on a train you can get such a seat, you can buy such a ticket for a standing seat. Therefore, my question, it's just a question. And then, as I didn't want anyone to touch my bags, then the bus driver started to yell at me that I should take my bags away very quickly. So, people were helping me willingly, but I didn't want them to touch my bags because of the wires. Um, and, I had to work out something else, because Devondrive was the bus stop that was really in a remote, secluded area. So I just asked a man to call for a taxi, and he showed me when ordering a taxi for me, he just showed me in his phone like that, and I was like, "Ooh, okay." And he called for a taxi. When the taxi arrived, there was no inscription taxi on it, so I didn't feel safe, because of it. But there was a homeless man. And Dutch homeless people don't look like Polish homeless people, so he really looked like just a regular guy, a nice guy. And I asked him, as we started to talk, speak Polish together, so I asked him to come with me on a taxi. And, in the taxi, I was talking about my book, and Mirek was just giving me big eyes. And I was like, but what's the whole fuss, It wasn't the book about magic. It wasn't the book about symbolism. It was just the very first book where I just wrote about my 3 jobs that I experienced in Holland. Very standard, nothing unusual happened in that book, in that plot. So... So yeah, it's just with time I started to see more and more, and I just incorporated this first book in Piglet. So he took me to yet another bus stop where there were many more buses, and I just took the very first bus that was going in the direction of Germany, nothing really to the capital. So I took the very first one I think it was about 7 p.m. That stopped in Düsseldorf and in Köln. And on the bus, before I even bought this ticket, so I was charged more money for the bus ticket than 2 guys in front of me. And that also made me feel, insecure, right? And then on the bus, I asked a woman sitting next to me if I could call my sister. And I called my sister, and I told her that, when I was asking about directions, where to leave, Düsseldorf or Köln, it wasn't clear. And I got stressed, and someone was looking at me. Perhaps there was something like that in it too. But the main thing I told her, it was that I didn't see, I didn't know why I didn't see, and that made me scared. So my sister told me that someone could have gave me a pill rape, and she called back, and I don't know, in 10 minutes perhaps, because my question was if they could come and pick me up. Because I was scared, so because I didn't see, and they called me back in about 10 minutes, I don't know, and they told me that my brother and my dad thought up an idea that I could pretend to be sick, and therefore I could force the bus to stop and call the ambulance and come to a safe place, right? So this was what I did, and the bus driver wasn't so willing to actually stop the bus. So someone at the back, of course it's only acted out that way so that it would appear that way. Someone in the back seat called that they called for the ambulance for me. And And yeah, and then I went to the ambulance, and paramedics asked me if they should catch someone, because if they should catch someone, then was the time to say so. And I was like, no. And they even told me, is the Hungarian guy bothering you? Is that him? They pointed to a right to the exact person sitting next to the driver and giving me this not clear communication where I should leave the bus stop. That was pretty much it. So there was no need to chase the man. And here's my question: he was a paramedic, so why did he ask me something like that? And then I didn't want to speak in front of my bags. I wanted to get rid of my bags, but there wasn't like, screaming, yelling. I was just like, okay, I don't want these things. I don't want all these baggages. And therefore, I was informed that I would be um, taken to give a testimony or a complaint at the police. But before that, they would check, they would calm me down or make some tests, something like that, I was told. And nobody told me clearly, explicitly, that they were taking me to a psychiatric hospital, or nobody even asked me if I would like to go to a psychiatric hospital. Where actually, when I entered the ambulance, I explicitly told them that I wasn't, suffering from anything for real. I was pretending. And that's it. Yeah. So when I was taken to the psychiatric hospital, actually, these two paramedics, so there was a psychiatrist and there was his assistant, and they were sitting in front of me, and behind them there were these two paramedics. And my psychiatrist asked me if I knew why I was there, and I told him if I knew where was I, and I told him I didn't know. So he told me where I was, and I told him I could talk and explain, and just not in front of my bags. And then we changed the place, and therefore the paramedics left. But here's my question: you're at work, you're a paramedic, you did your job, so why do you stand in the office and listen to somebody's, private visitation with a psychiatrist? I have to tell you that seeing a psychiatrist is a shame. At least for me. So when my sister called, she called and asked if I could go on my own to take the bus and go to Berlin on my own, with the amount of luggage I had. And it was already much later at night because I took this bus at more or less at 7 p.m. So it was later at night. And I told her yes. I told her yes. And then she called again and she told me, okay, they were going to come anyway and pick me up. So basically, the conversations with psychiatrists are very interesting. And my psychiatrist told me that I had a clarity of the mind on the good side, and he also told me that possibly I could be psychotic. So they also gave me a drug test, and the drug test showed that I had cannabis. And where could that cannabis come from? One of the taxi drivers who promised me to rent a room, but first asking his son if he could, he gave me a cigarette which was rolled up, and I believe that could have been a cigarette with cannabis. And then when going to, when my sibling arrived, we were, I wanted to throw away one of the things, or I don't know, I wanted to throw away something, so they really yelled at me terribly for going to the trash and throwing away something. which actually was my belongings, you know. Um, and then we were driving to Berlin, and there were a lot of black cars driving behind us, and they were all the same, very luxurious black cars. So in the mirror, I could see a girl, which was actually an Arabic girl, but I worked with her when working with shrimps. I worked with that girl. She actually wore a shawl and glasses, black glasses, and she was of the same, height and weight too. That was very characteristic about her. But when we stopped the car to take the break, I also saw a gypsy man that I'm sure he was gypsy, blue eyes, darker skin. So I tried to memorize his plate number recognition, so he drove away very quickly, but it was obviously acted out. Um, and then, on the way when we were driving, we almost had an accident as my brother was taking over the car. He was looking at me, and then I had a weird dialogue in my head of some conversation from emails I sent very long ago. And my sister yelled to stop the car, and he managed to stop the car on time. And then I was told many, many times that they were, that they came so many kilometers for me, so many kilometers in a blame game. I was told that repeatedly, but they also came so many kilometers yet once again when they came in 2 weeks to ask me to go and see and agree to see a psychiatrist. And I knew I was fine. I knew I had the right if I overreacted. Sure thing, I was, expecting to see wires in my things. And with my sister in Germany, I just went through my things. She didn't allow me to do it on my own, which actually they were my personal things, my belongings, my clothes. And the story evolves. So, yeah. I threw away my clothes mainly and some of my things too. And I did that, yeah. But, they came once again in 2 weeks to ask me to go and see a psychiatrist. And I knew I was fine, but I agreed. And then when seeing a psychiatrist, the door was opened. I could see a secretary when talking to a psychiatrist, and I could see male nurses walking there and back when I was talking about alcohol, having hormones on the highest level, and sending naked photos to a married man. I think it was my third time in my life, perhaps, when I said that, so plus, visiting a psychiatrist for me is a shame, so I don't want to be seen. Sure, when I asked her to close the door, I could close the door. And then she just simplified everything, and she wrote that intimate details from my life made me search suspicions in other people. She also wrote alcohol and drugs. And then we had the deal with my sisters that if I go and only just check and then nothing comes out in their opinion, then that's it. That's the end of the story. So I left the office and I lied to my sisters that everything was fine. And they didn't believe me. Monica was like, but you got the paper. Show me the paper. You had the paper in your hand. And then next thing that happened was my mother went to the court, filed a motion against me where she stated that I was aggressive and I was stalked by mafia. I think I never used the word mafia, not even once. And basically all my life I struggled with the expression, so I wasn't aggressive. And I was raised in a family where actually we had this domestic violence, and my sister was quite, emotional and very expressive, and she would make a big deal, a big thing out of nothing. and she would create an argument very often out of nothing. So most of the time I didn't even bother to go to parents and to tell them. To react, most of the time I wouldn't respond until she actually approached me physically and attacked me physically. Then yeah, then I would. But I was just stunned because my mother lied in the motion that I was aggressive when I wasn't, and about mafia too. And then they would say things, they told me things that the green car was chasing me or something, and the story changes, or that I wanted to attract the attention, and that therefore I called for the bus, and everyone came up with something else in that story. And later, yeah, it's a long story. It's a long story where you actually go to a psychiatrist and you have to prove that you are normal, and just the fact that you are there for a psychiatrist, well, most of the time indicates that there is something. There is something that they do not know yet. They didn't hear it from you yet, but there is something. So I would say that basically just going to a psychiatrist means that you are labeled already. Fine, yeah. Okay. There will be more about psychiatrists. Yeah. What I want to tell you now is that the entire story is described in my book Piglet, and it is a story about the system. So you go to the system, you go to doctors for help, and yeah, if you want to know more about it, then please drop me a line at lkinga788@gmail.com. If you want to buy my course about victims of sexual abuse, if you want to learn more about manipulation, mind games, control, about shaping our behaviors, then click the link below. And yeah, if you like this video, please click the like button. And if you like this video, please share it with other people too. Right? So, thanks for watching.